Hi, this is Van from Between Two Trains. We're about to bring you another great episode. But before we do, I wanted to tell you about an event that's going to be going on May 5th from 6 to 9 p.m. One of our previous guests, Hello Gorgeous, will be holding a fashion show titled We Are All Wonder Women. So come on out on Saturday from 6 to 9. The doors will open at 5 p.m. They'll have sips, snacks, gift card drawings, and modeling by local Wonder Women. The price will be $10 per person, but all proceeds will be donated to local community organizations. So come on out and support one of our great local businesses.
Hi, this is Theo, and you're listening to Between Two Trains, a bi-monthly business podcast where we interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the North DeKalb area. Today, your co-hosts are Van Pappas of Oxygen Financial and Jason Wheelock of Wheelock Realty. And now, Between Two Trains.
Welcome and good morning to Between Two Trains, a business podcast. We are in the beautiful studios of the Chamblee Chamber of Commerce in downtown Chamblee. If you haven't been to Chamblee lately, you need to come check it out. There is a lot going on. Today, my co-host is Jason Wheelock, as you heard from the opening segment. And Jason, welcome to the show. It's great to hear you again. You've been gone for a couple episodes.
Hey, Van. It's good to be back on the show. It's been a little bit of a hiatus on my end, and I'm really excited to be back on.
Now, I think the hiatus is because you're in real estate, and
That's right.
The real estate market is hot and furious, and you've been quite busy. And so as we start these episodes, we've been doing a segment called Entrepreneur Talk. And a couple of episodes ago, we had a great discussion about real estate. We had an entrepreneur, Robert Pond, who was on, who gave some insights from the commercial real estate.
Sorry I missed that, by the way. That sounded like a good one.
But I felt like maybe we could get some insight from you because we did get a lot of our viewers asking about real estate and wanting some more information on it. So tell us about some of the trends you're seeing in the Atlanta housing market this spring.
Yeah. So it's been a very interesting spring. And as many years ago, the holidays, it slowed down a little bit. And then January, February came, and we have just had an absolute explosion of buyers in this market. And the main theme is that the sellers have not followed. And usually you see inventory increase just a little bit this time of year, and it's actually gone the other way. There's less houses on the market. So I would say some of the top themes we're seeing is multiple offers, buyers getting frustrated. Even some buyers have been frustrated for so long they even take a break from the buying process because they can't get a house under contract. And so competition has really, really become a challenge, especially in these in-town markets like Chamblee, Brookhaven, North DeKalb, and all across North Atlanta.
You mentioned inventory a second ago. Why is that such an important indicator of what the market's doing, and how is it influencing things that we're seeing?
Yeah, in inventory, it's one of these technical words, that the run-of-the-mill just person that's buying and selling their own home doesn't really always grasp. And to sort of dumb it down, put it in layman's terms, inventory, if you, for instance, you say, hey, we have 3 months of inventory in this market, it means if no other house went on sale right now, today going forward, we would be out of homes to sell in 3 months, right? And historically, the balance between a buyer and seller's market is 6 to 7 months of inventory. Back in 2008, 2009, it blasted to 12, 13 months, right? It was a strong buyer's market. And there was actually an interesting article just published last week that reflected our stats showing that inventory was actually, in many cases across Metro Atlanta, averaging out to 1.8 months of housing inventory. We would be out of homes to sell in 60 days if nothing else went on the market, if you can believe that.
Wow. So do you see differences in the various price points, or are these indicators holding true across the board? So, homes at $400,000 compared to homes at $800,000?
Yeah, great question. Every market's different, meaning even when I give you that average of inventory, 1.8 months, we like to break it down to not only the specific city, a lot of times the specific school district within a city, and then even a neighborhood, right? So going into the differences there, it's a larger discussion, but price point wise, you can definitely see a trend where the lower the price point, the lower the inventory, right? So anything, if you're looking in town, let's call it ITP, right? Inside the perimeter, under $500,000 is going to be so competitive right now. It's unbelievable. And then between 500 and 750, it opens up slightly, still really strong. And then once you get over 750 to $1 million, it gets a little more balanced, but I would still caution that really strong sellers market and anything that's priced right is going to go. The only segment of the market where you would see a lot of choices and inventory for buyers is going to be in the super high-end luxury market up above $2 million, where you have probably 1% or less of folks actually looking.
Now, it's been quite a few years since the '08 debacle in the real estate market. Do you think we're in a bubble or approaching a bubble? Or
Yeah.
what should buyers and sellers be preparing for?
Not to mass panic, mostly. I think that you just have to look at history. The average real estate market in the United States from high to low, we call it a cycle, right? Same thing in financial services,
Sure.
You know about it, is 7 years from top to bottom. And the last market crash, last market adjustment was 2008, 2009. Not every 7 years do we experience a crash, right? And it's been close to a decade since then, and the market slowly recovered. If you looked at Atlanta and you had to ask me what's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years, it's likely historically that we go through some sort of adjustment. It's probably a minor correction. It's only the fact that you can't go up forever. Prices are increasing faster than wages and the rate of growth. So something's got to give. But I wouldn't say that we are going to experience anything dramatic. And Atlanta is a unique market. The type of growth and the type of jobs and the strategic location that we're in is unique compared to most people across the U.S., most cities. So we're going to overcome any kind of correction, I believe, to a higher degree than other markets.
Well, I think we could talk about this for hours and hours, but
Yeah.
I do want to bring on our guest here in a second. We're going to take a short break to honor our sponsors, and after the break, we'll bring on Jan Levie from Handy Entertainment.
If you recently got divorced, you may be wondering how to pick up all of the financial pieces. Is it time to make a new budget, new goals, and get a new game plan with your investments? What about the best way to save money on your taxes? Take control of your money future. Go to oxygenfinancial.net to schedule a complimentary meeting today. Go to oxygenfinancial.net to get started right now.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, an affiliate of Kestra Investment Services. Oxygen is not affiliated with Kestra.
Okay, welcome back to Between Two Trains, business podcast where we interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs of the North DeKalb area. Today, our guest is Jan Levie from Handy Entertainment. Jan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Van.
We appreciate you being here. Now,
And Jason.
Hey, Jan. You left me out there, man.
I am so sorry, Jason. Didn't mean to leave you out. So, Handy Entertainment, business started in 2009. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
What we do is create interactive entertainment for private social events, for large corporate events, for interactive events that take place in a specific place. We can get someone's message out, whether it's their personal message about their special day or their message about their new product, their launch, their clients, their employees. We basically give what you have to say to your people legs so that they keep on talking about it and they don't forget you.
Nice, nice. Jan brought these wonderful little gift baskets with
Swag
us.
bags.
Yeah, and a nice little container. And I want to get to those in a second because there's something interesting called the fortune-telling fish in it. We'll talk about that in a second. But before we do, Jan, so you don't actually have a physical location. That's correct. You basically just work out of your home. How do you operate? Is it out of your home or?
We are booked for events that are in a specific venue. And where I do my own work or our team does its work is totally dependent on the project. So, for example, if something is really tech heavy, we might have to go someplace in a studio and build something. We might have to produce something elsewhere and have it shipped in. But in general, what I'm able to do is speak with clients and prospects and staff members and communicate with them on an ongoing basis from wherever I am, which is nice.
So do you do a lot at their actual offices? Like if it's a corporation, you'll go to their office and put on the event?
No.
No, you won't do that?
We do spaces that are, well, for example, we have done events recently at the Fairmont, which is a new hotel on the west side. We've been privileged and honored to do these events, I have to say, because working at places like Callenwald and working at 103 West and working at Lake Lanier Resorts, and it goes on and on and on. They're just fabulous locations. They're wonderful venues. And the people I get to work with are amazing, just amazing.
Now, you had mentioned to me about events like DragonCon. Were you involved at DragonCon or?
We were hired by a company that was producing an activation for DragonCon.
Okay.
And that was an alcohol company.
Okay.
And they had us basically getting people to come over to their product. And we did that by giving people fortunes. But I'll tell you, quite frankly, wearing a costume at DragonCon, my goodness gracious. It's like, what do you do to get people to notice you?
You just sort of blended in with the crowd, huh?
No, I just sort of did things differently.
Okay. Do we know, are you allowed to tell us who the alcohol?
Yeah, it was Cruise on Rum.
Cruise on Rum, okay. All right. And so how did you incorporate what you do with Cruise on Rum? I mean, you sat and gave fortunes, or what did you do specifically for them?
What I did for that was what I would call a quick and dirty kind of fortune telling that took place as people walked by, and it gave them information about where they were going, where they were coming from, and where they were.
I'm curious, what do you mean by dirty fortune telling?
Quick and dirty is sort of like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Gotcha.
That's an expression that's used in different areas, quick and dirty, instead of being really meticulous and very, very detailed about things, to do something in a way that resonates with the moment. So it's not what you were thinking, dear.
Yeah. Sorry, I went the wrong way with that.
Yeah. So now you have a background in theater and journalism. That's obviously very beneficial for the work you're doing today, that theater work, correct?
It is an amazing, wonderful addition to everything else. For example, I worry a lot about my ability to, how should I put this? To incorporate all the different areas that I want to, but because my training as a journalist gives me the ability to sift out the nuggets, I can find people who know about things, and I have mentors everywhere. There are people who can train me about areas I need to find more information on and give me the tools to carry out whatever the escapade is.
You also worked as a print journalist, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So how did you go from print journalism to when were you a print journalist?
A long, long time ago, far before you were born, dear.
You're not that old. You're not that old. So you started this business in 2009. What caused you to say, hey, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. This is what I'm going to do. Was there some moment or something that occurred for you?
Van, have you ever done live theater?
I have never done live theater.
Van, Jason, you've got to do it. Okay. It's an amazing thing. The most amazing part is when you get to improvise. Now, if you find yourself in a great theater working with great people and suddenly you realize that there are people who are living in homes with 40 cats just waiting every year for that plum of a role in a Christmas Carol that will pay their rent, you start to say, well, do I really want to learn somebody else's words and do somebody else's actions every day because that's what I've worked really hard for? What I looked at is what really moves me, what moves other people, what has enough change in it and enough stability in it, and what is exciting.
Yeah,
sorry, Jason, you look like you have something to say there.
You may have answered this because there's all kinds of businesses, entrepreneurs out there have started everything under the sun. I guess partially what I'm wanting to know is the genesis of how fortune telling became the focus, right? How did you pick that? How did that become your passion? Was it that moment you just described, or was this something that you were fascinated with when you were young?
Oh, by golly. I was a parent at a PTA Halloween party telling spooky stories. That was my job. And the other PTA person was a gypsy fortune teller. She was in charge. She is now a judge. I won't say her name. This is what I do. But she decided, or someone told on me that my storytelling was too spooky. And so I got pulled and asked to step in as the gypsy fortune teller.
So PC.
And that was it. That was it.
I'm all for it.
So, and maybe that goes in with the fortune fish that we got in our little bag she brought us.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what the fortune fish have to say. But what I want to really kind of know is, so you're very artsy. You've got this theater background. You perform. You do this stuff. Tell me a little bit. I want to dig into the business side, and if that's a challenge for you, because oftentimes I get people come and say, hey, I want to start a business, I want to be an entrepreneur, and they have a great passion for whatever the activity is they're trying to do, but then when it comes to the business side, the accounting, the finance, the running the actual. All right, so I was going to say, how much of that do you do? How much do you send out? Do you have a team?
I do a lot myself.
Okay.
I do a lot of technology. I've worked with a lot of different applications in order to build things that work on their own. And I've gotten over the curve where I constantly check out different applications and platforms to see what will do what. I'm happy with what I'm using now. My bookkeeper is a wonderful person. I have assistants who help me. I have assistants at events. What I really need is someone who is a dedicated loader inner and loader outer.
Now you're going to have to explain what a loader inner, because I think Jason's mind
loads
went another way again.
Someone who loads in and loads out. That means, for example, I did an event on Saturday and there were strong gusty winds, and we suddenly had to stake the flaps of the structure that we used for the event. I had other things to do, but that's what happened. And so one of the positions that I'm looking to fill is someone who wants a job that is occasional and doesn't mind lifting things and putting things together and hammering them in and making sure they're safe. The question you have, though, is about the business part of it. Artsy is, I don't know about artsy. Artsy is a word that sounds pejorative. Okay? It's sort of like saying someone's analytical. What is artsy and what is business? As you told me recently, Van, what is it about business and art that...
Well, I don't know. We've had this conversation. I don't know anything about art, but I know it drives economic activity.
And that's what we use our artsiness to do, is we help people build their businesses, or we help people make their special day memorable.
Now, these assistants and this loader in or out that you're looking for, and whatnot, are these actual employees, or you contract out all that work?
I contract the work out because I don't know, or we don't know from day to day how many different venues we have to cover, how many different events we're going to be doing in the future. We know to a certain degree, but things change all the time. Whereas people used to book 10 to 14 months out, quite frequently we get something 2 weeks, even 1 week before the actual date.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's interesting. Every business's organizational model is different. We're learning that a loader is in or outer. Is that right?
I made up that word.
Okay. It's an official.
You heard it here
it's now
first on
officially-
Between Two Trains.
Right. Officially added to
new-
the fortune
a new
teller
word.
organizational model. And you got to build a bench,
It's
is what I heard you
interactive
saying.
entertainment, though. It's
That's
not really
right.
fortune telling.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
depends. It's okay. It's like
Misspoke
artsy.
there.
I
Yeah.
think the people, we don't want to confuse our listeners into
Yes.
thinking what they see on TV, where there's some woman in a house and you're going up and paying her $50 and she's putting her arms over a crystal ball and telling you your future. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about real entertainment here.
Yes, we are. Whether it's handwriting analysis, whether it's chocolate lips readings, whether it's Zoltar Live, free human included, whether it's something that we're developing right now that will be an interactive art project with a local artist, having paint put on a surface at the same time that somebody is rapping, and it will be done at a lip syncing contest. There are all different ways to get,
I see
get a
so many
message out.
applications. Let me ask you, would you do something like a birthday party where someone says, hey, we're going to have a 50th birthday party and we want to bring
have
someone like you?
I just did a birthday party the other day. That's exactly what I did on Saturday.
Is it mainly kids or you do adults?
We do mostly fabulous birthday parties.
Fabulous birthday?
Really big birthday parties,
Yeah.
somebody's
Not-
milestone birthday. But
Not
we do
not
kids
my
parties.
11-year-old where I'm going to spend
Right.
No,
$50.
but I just did a 16-year-old birthday party. If it's $50, I don't think so, because we want to be able to deliver what you expect.
Right.
I think one of the challenges with entertainment across the board, because we're in Atlanta is huge with the movie industry now. Even though it's different, it's still entertainment. And the biggest challenge I see with y'all is you always have to scale up and down based on need. It's never this constant flow of here's the amount of folks we have on staff. You almost have to have this bench that you've built and you go to when you got to call people up.
That's exactly what it is, and thanks for that, Jason. What I was amazed on this past Saturday with the gusty wind and having to stake this micro environment we have, because I speak to students. I've had the fortune of speaking to Georgia State University students for the last 1.5 years, constantly. Well, not constantly. Take that part out. Yeah. Not constantly, regularly, to the hospitality industry students. And one of the things I tell them about the events industry is that you have to be prepared for everything. Mm. And no matter what you do, there's always something that you can't possibly imagine, no matter what you do.
Well, I got one more question before we move into our final segment.
Oh, no.
Just one? We're going to play a fun game
fast.
here in a second. But before we do, I ask this question of everyone that comes on the show. What would you tell a potential entrepreneur is the most important thing to do when starting their new business? Is there one thing that you're like, you really got to focus on this?
Always look for people who are really good at what they do and ask them questions. Because everything is there, everything's been done. All you can do is do it your own way. But it never hurts to have really good people in your court. And also remember to help those around you. So by speaking with students, I just feel that it's about pulling everybody up.
Well, you're listening to Between Two Trains. We got Jan Levie from Handy Entertainment on with us, and we're going to move into our last segment where we play a fun game, Jan. I'm sure you've heard some of our other shows where we play a game called Hot or Not, where we're going to ask you to tell us if a particular topic is a hot thing to do as an entrepreneur or not such a hot thing to do as an entrepreneur. Jason, you want to start us off, or you got a hot or not for us?
Oh no, Jason, don't go there.
I'm always
Don't
worried
even
about
read
this
the
segment.
brochure.
It's easier to read it than actually have to answer it. Senior citizens on smartphones, that's an interesting one. What do you think about that, Jan?
Senior citizens on smartphones, hot or not?
Are you talking about?
Jen's looking at us like, what in the world does that have to do
Well,
with?
I believe that senior citizens should avoid sitting on their smartphones in every situation. This is dangerous. Not only for the senior citizen, but for the smartphone.
Are we talking about the right to smartphones, or should they be on them?
Let's give you one that might be a little bit more your speed for.
I will
for
answer
that,
that. I think that it depends on where you're at. And my mom is in her mid-60s, and my grandmother is 95. I think you give my grandma a flip phone, and my mom can handle the smartphone. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want my mother on either, but that's a different story for another time offline. How about hiring family members, hot or not? Would you hire? You have a son, right?
I have a favorite son, I have a favorite daughter, and I have a favorite husband.
Okay, I would hope the husband's a favorite one.
Oh, yeah.
Would you hire your husband or your family to work in your business?
Oh, I absolutely would, but they don't have any time.
Okay. So
They
it's
do
hot,
help me out.
It's just not necessarily for your...
I've seen other entrepreneurs build their businesses with the help of their families, and it's something that I wish that I could do with my family because it's something that's very, very useful. You have the people, you know what their abilities are, and hopefully if they're not available when you need them, you ground them.
You like it?
Right.
Well, if we're talking about family, I'm asking you which family you're from, whether that's hot or not. Some families work really good together, right? Others do not.
Yeah, I'm
My
not sure-
family does
I'm not
really-
sure, and I know my wife listens to these. I'm not sure I necessarily would want my wife in my financial planning practice.
Yeah.
She's an archaeologist. She thinks much differently than I do.
Case by case.
Yes, case by case. Well, what about creating a business plan? Is that a hot thing for entrepreneurs or not such a hot thing?
I believe that a business plan has to be a living document, and it has to really reflect what you want, need, and are actually doing. If you buy some software that gives you the basic skeleton of a business plan and expect that to serve your purposes, if you're not doing something that someone else is already doing, don't even go there. You can really have it serve you. You can have it teach you what you need to do, have you foresee bumps in the road, have you procure elements that you might need going forward. For example, I just decided to add scent, aroma, to an event I'm doing that's coming up.
Interesting.
Yes, and that's not my business plan. So actually, I didn't follow
So
my
how do you
business.
do that? I mean, you just like...
I've got some tools now, and I'm going to play around with them. And that's what I do is when I have a moment, whether it's a chocolate
And the
ganache.
idea is to try to get the guests or the people that are at your event to sort of start thinking through their nose.
You do that now, whether you realize it or not. It's something that's huge in retail. Different companies buy different scents that are piped in to retail enclaves to elicit specific buyer actions. I'm not going to elicit specific buyer actions, but I do want to create an ambience that is also linked to the sense of smell.
I'm going to throw you a softball, Jan. Hot or not, Chambly. The city
Chambly
of
is so hot.
Chambly's hot.
It is so hot. And as my daughter said, my favorite daughter, a long time ago, she said, Chambly's the new Decatur mama. Ooh. Years ago. We left Decatur in the dust.
Yeah. Well, you know, we're working on, the city's working on this town center, so we'll see how that pans out. You know, Decatur, it's interesting about Decatur is it was their town square, their town center was a 30-year in the making progress. I mean, it was not just, hey, we're going to plop down this. So, you know, it's going to take some time for Chambly, but I think you're right, Jason.
Chambly.
I think it's hot too.
Chambly has an amazing infrastructure. It has a really beautiful position, just geographically. It is close to everything, and it allows people to avoid traffic congestion. On top of that, the fact that it consists and has consisted for at least 30 years of people from different demographics, different nationalities, different socio-economic
yeah.
brackets makes it really interesting. It's a true it's
a
a
melting
micro
pot.
city.
It's a melting pot.
It's
There's
a micro city
yeah.
in a way, but it's got a small town feel. Now, the one thing that might be a little bit of a problem is that the shops that constitute the town center right now face the railroad, which is a one-sided option. So I don't know what we do to create the other side of.
There's going to have to be some connectivity points placed to get over, around, and under.
And zip cars and rent-a-bikes.
You know what? I'm going to throw some real estate 2 cents in here. Not that these two neighborhoods are the same, but if you're thinking aesthetics, I actually had this discussion this morning at coffee with a friend of mine that West Midtown and Chamblee share this sort of industrial feeling to it if you're in the downtown sort of central area of Chamblee. So I think if you like sort of that rustic, cool,
Urban decay.
Chamblee is a great alternative for that.
It's
if
beautiful.
you're not, into West Midtown, I think it's incredible
For people
the
who want
correlation
to
there.
have access to shipping for chain supply,
Yeah.
there you've got proximity to all the major traffic. You've got a small airport here on top of that.
We have trains, planes, and automobiles in Chamblee.
Everything.
There's no doubt. Well, we've been running long, so I hate to cut us off because we can definitely talk about Chamblee for a long time. You've been listening to Between Two Trains. Our guest has been Jan Levie from Handy Entertainment. Jan, any parting words you want to tell our listeners?
Yes, one of the events that we're doing that is open to the public is Brides Across America by Impression Bridal, and that will be on July 3rd. And that is where Impression Bridal provides wedding gowns for service members and their wives for free, which is a really wonderful thing. And we are thrilled to create something to add to that event.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show. Jason, thank you for co-hosting
Yeah.
with me once again. I look forward
and something else.
Oh, you got something else?
Yes. Do come out to Children's Restoration Network's 25th anniversary at the Avalon on the 14th of July. That will be a fabulous, amazing celebration, and it helps poor and hungry, homeless children and mothers.
We'll make sure to put those links in the show notes so that people can click right on them. Again, you've been listening to Between Two Trains. Thank you for listening. You can hear us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube. Check us out on a variety of different places. You can hear past issues as well. And we'll be back with you in 2 weeks on the 15th for another great episode of Between Two Trains. So tell me how this works. Fortune teller fish. Place fish in palm of the hand, and its movements will indicate. So I just take this out of the bag.
Yes.
I put
And
it
just
hard.
make sure your children don't
Doesn't matter which side?
No. And so you ask, you want to know something, right?
Oh, I have to ask it something?
Well, no, it's
Why it's bending all the way over. What is it? It's moving head. Jealousy? I'm jealous?
I got the jealous